Okay, Nathan, here I am. I'm looking at your Calculate My Grade program, the final version here. Okay, so by the way, you got one variable in here. It's not being used anywhere. So when you see that, if you've got a variable that maybe you haven't been using, you can either delete it or whatever. I will say this, you got this variable called int number that's actually, this is when you're generating a random number between 1 and 100, right? Might make more sense for that to be called int random, I don't know. So anyway, in here you've got this situation where when the user just puts in how many points the total was, the amount that they got, click the grade button, you're giving them feedback here. So just how it normally works, grade is what they got and total points it was what it was worth, right? So the score, is the grade they got divided by the total points times 100, right? And so then when they come down here to the selects case, it looks at the score you calculated and figures out what letter grade, right? The place that we're changing it here is on your form you had this radio button. If random grade gets clicked here, then what the program's supposed to do is just randomly generate a score between 1 and 100, which you're doing here in int number, and then you would use that to calculate the score if they check that radio button, right? So if we go in here, and I'm just going to put an enter in there after your then so that works. And it could all be written on one line like you had it, but I think when you put an enter in there after your then and get this stuff indented in there, it reads a little easier. So if they check that random radio button, now we don't want to use DBL grade, what they put in for a grade. We want to use the random number that you generated, right? Which you said was int number. So at that point, we want to say that int number is divided by, and since we're generating a random number between 1 and 100, we're just going to divide it by 100 here. Actually, if we're dividing and then timesing by 100, if you're getting a random number between 1 and 100, we can just make that the score, right? Don't even have to do the timesing, actually, now that I think about it. So at this point, if random's been checked, then score just becomes that random number. And we'll look at score here and see what grade they got. So now when we run it, and let's say, okay, let's say I put in a 65, that's the amount of points I got, it was worth 100. So that should be, oh, sorry, I had them backwards here. So it was worth 100, sorry, I read that wrong. Put in 65, we should end up with a D, right? Now, if it's a random grade, here it came up F as the random grade. F is going to show up more often than not because the odds of getting lower than 65 are the best, right? But it's randomly changing. I had an A, I had a C, right? Now what you might want to do is also show them what that random score is. So maybe have another label where you're putting DBL score into the label or something like that. But I don't, so you had two situations. One where you're calculating score based on what they put in, but if they check random, you're just using the random number to show the score. And I think you just didn't have your equation change down here so that score was the random number. Okay, so that was part number one. So it's a simple thing to fix. The other thing is you've got a menu item here that does completely the same thing. Okay, you don't need to create a separate event for that. You can just go in here where you have your handles part. There was a video on this earlier in the course. So I can change what events this handles. So if I want this to also handle MNU grades, click event. I can choose that. So now both the button and the menu grade, when those are clicked on, they're going to do the same thing because you had the same code in there anyway. So all of this duplicate code, this whole other section, can be deleted if you just say that this event handles both of those. Now you should probably change the name of this because it's not just for the button kind of thing, but if you change it to that, you should be good to go. So hopefully that helps. If you have more questions tomorrow, just send me your questions and we'll iron it out. But I think those were the two main things that I saw there.